The Spirit opens the Word. He says in 2 Corinthians, he says, the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. I remember sitting in services where the preacher preached on you should not be condemned. So while he's preaching, this is his topic more or less, that there is no condemnation. But the very word that he preaches condemns me. I remember, if there's something that really intimidated me, was Mary and Martha. Do you know why? Because I'm a Martha. It's like every time they preach on Mary and Martha, I would just duck behind my Bible, open my Bible in another place, and I would just go on trips in the Word, because I just refuse to listen to it. Because when I go home, someone needs to make the food, someone needs to clean the house, someone needs to... And I'm always condemned with Mary and Martha, till I really made a study of it, and I realized, oh my word, God never told Martha to stop cooking. He told her to stop being anxious. Because 2 chapters on, when he was on his way to the cross, you know who he visited? Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, that was raised from the dead. And you know who fed him? Martha. You know what's Mary? She was sitting at his feet. But what really got me is John 11, where Jesus himself announced immortality, where he said, if you die, you will live again. But if you live and believe, you don't have to die. You will live. Believe you this? He asked. And nobody wants to preach about that verse. But it is in the Bible. We need to understand immortality. So if it's sealed, we will not understand it. And we are like very ignorant about it. So Martha and Mary has a lot of ignorance about it and a lot of condemnation. But as soon as truth is revealed, it's like the condemnation drops off. Because it sets you free. The truth will set you free. The law came by Moses, condemning. But grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. The problem is we separate grace and truth. We have to receive the grace, but we got to go for truth, because the truth sets you free. So when Lazarus now finally died, where was Mary? The one sitting at the feet. She was crying her eyes out and having all the sympathy of everybody crying with her. Where was Martha? She ran to Jesus and said, why weren't you here? So Jesus was not accusing Martha of cooking and cleaning. He was saying, Martha, don't be anxious. There's a higher way. Leave other people. Find your race. I can't tell you how the revelation of that has set me free. So I want to say this. He says, without revelation, people perish. Without vision, people die. This is clear, the Spirit of the Word. How are we going to get revelation and vision? But by the Spirit. He says the letter kills. The very word that is supposed to set you free brings you under condemnation. That's a pathetic state. So we need to go for revelation. And I've got very good news for you. I was preaching the other day, and someone challenged me and said, well, why has this not been preached before? Because of time. As time goes, revelation grows. Where do you get it, Annalise? Well, Ezekiel, when he saw the river coming up, it was first ankle deep, knee deep, thigh deep, and then shoulder deep. And everyone is 1,000 cubits. So it's not... The one is not better than the other one. The one is not 4,000 and the other one 1,000. It's 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. It's 4 times 1,000. It means perfect revelation for every stage. So since the cross, the river opened up. And from there, as time goes, revelation grows. Now, if you can just realize that we live in the bestest time ever. The later you are alive, on the time scale, the more you can know, because there's more revelation opened. Do you understand that? Maybe we understand now more than Abraham and Moses and all those guys even understood in their times. There's just one guy that fascinates me, and that is Paul, that he had all the mysteries revealed to him. So from the cross, there was mysteries. The first mystery that was opened was, great is the mystery of godliness. 2 Timothy 3:16. God manifesting in the flesh. So from that point, it was like a door that you open, and it's mysteries, 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 mysteries revealed. And how does it come? Ankle deep, knee deep, thigh deep, shoulder deep, rivers to swim in. So we are at the time of the rivers to swim in, and we're sitting next to the river and say, I don't know how to swim. Well, jump in. You'll find out. If you don't know anything, just close your mouth and your nose and lie on your back. You will float. Eventually, you will learn to paddle, and eventually, you will do it. So we need to look at all these revelations, how they open up and what it is. Now, the Bible talks about it as sealed. Now, when it comes to seal, Ephesians and Colossians tells us that we are sealed with the Holy Spirit. What does that mean? It means nothing can take the Spirit of God from us unless you break the seal. How do you break the seals? You go back to idolatry and trash, and you re-crucify the Christ, and you step over what He's done. And there are very few people that do that. There are people that are disobedient. There are people that don't live the life, but they've sort of received Jesus, and they acknowledge that Jesus Christ died. They believe in Jesus, but they don't live the life. But they're not, if you take them to witchcraft, they don't want to do it. So it's only people that really have tasted the good things and go back. I'm not talking about just sinning also. We condemn people very easy. John talks about a sin that is unto death and a sin that is not unto death. So when we are born again, our spirits are born again, and we are sealed with His Spirit. His Spirit comes and He seals our spirit, but we're still in the natural. So this is where we need to get our minds renewed. Now, in that, you make mistakes. I have made the most terrible mistakes in my life. I've made mistakes in my marriage. I've made mistakes with my children. I've made mistakes with my staff. I've made mistakes with other preachers. I've made mistakes that really, oh my God, I've made mistakes with my parents. It's like, oh. But the Bible says, as we walk in the light, we confess it, and He forgives us as we walk. We don't park at our mistakes. We are growing in grace. For His intention was for us to grow into the fullness, to the full stature of the Christ. His intention was not for you to become like another preacher or apostle. No. Like Christ Himself. He was the pattern Son revealed on this earth. God manifested in flesh. The first mystery. So after that mystery, there's a lot of mysteries open up. And He says the mystery of iniquity has always been on the work. It's always been there. Where did it start? Everybody, where's the Antichrist? While He was in the garden. It's Antichrist. It's a spirit. So we're looking for stuff, and we're flying around in the spirit, and we don't know where we are. No, we should not be flying around in the spirit. We should walk the walk here. He says, you must walk in the Spirit. How do you walk in the Spirit? The Spirit is not natural. Yeah, that is why He's given us His Spirit, so we can be on the earth in the Spirit. He brought heaven to our realm. But these things need to open to you. For how many years was themes like the sons of God just not revealed? Now everybody knows that we are sons of God. So people claim they're sons of God, but they no. But the earth will know when the sons are manifested. It will be revealed. There's so many people today. This is not a trying. This is a being. He says, you err because you do not know the Scriptures. Then He says, you look through the Scriptures and you think you're going to find life there, but you don't come to me. So you need to, this is not a trying to be, this is being what you are. And this growing, His intention was for us to daily grow into this. When something is sealed, it means it is closed. And it's protected. So when he says we are sealed with the Spirit, we should be close to the world and we are protected. We just need to get and realize who we are and what we are. So we haven't got a revelation of what Christ has done for us, and this is very desperate that we know it. So if we go back to sealing from the beginning, the principle of first mentioning is very important because it sets the order of the patterns that was going to follow. And when it comes to seals, it is actually, what? Because the first time a seal is mentioned is in Deuteronomy 32. This is when God said to Moses, these people are going to sin themselves bankrupt. The nation I have chosen. When you die, Moses, they're gonna just go all over the place. They're not going to realize what they've done. They're going to mess it up. But my purpose is forever. So go write them a song and sing them a song. And this is part of the song Moses sang to them. For their vine is a vine of Sodom, and their fields are the fields of Gomorrah. And their grapes are the grapes of gall, and their clusters are bitter. That's why they were the winepress that was trodden, because it was not acceptable to God. They totally disappointed. Now he says, their wine is the poison of dragons and cruel of venom asps. When Jesus came, he said, use serpent seed. That whole system was infiltrated with serpent seed. Is this laid up in store with me and sealed among my treasures? To me belongs vengeance and recompense, and their roots slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand. And the things that shall come upon them, make haste, please. This is just before they go into the promised land. He says their calamity is sealed because they didn't have a heart like King David. This is why when Jesus' genealogy in the Spirit is Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, the man with a heart and the man with a faith. But the natural seed line, they didn't have the heart and they didn't have the faith. They didn't have the obedience. And they were living totally in deception, opening the door to all kinds of idolatry, defiling the system that God gave them. And God says he has sealed this in his treasury, that their end will be a calamity and a day of vengeance and a burning. This is crazy. So when we preach that you cannot go back to the law, you cannot go back to the temple, you cannot rebuild the temple, you cannot visit Jerusalem as Jerusalem, Jerusalem. What about the New Jerusalem? So it's not that you're anti-Semitic, it's that we have to start having a revelation on the new. Now, when something is sealed, it is closed. Now, this whole calamity of Israel was also sealed because he says he sealed it in his treasures. And you will see as time goes, revelation goes and grows and opens up, and the seals are broken. Now, I want to read to you in Deuteronomy 29, just before this, God said, the secret things belongs to God, to the Lord our God. Actually, Moses said it. The secret things belongs to the Lord our God, but the things which are revealed belong to us and our children forever and ever, that we may do the words of the Lord. So when things are closed, it's like we can't find our way. It's like going into Chicago without a GPS. It's a mess. This is how Christians are like. We're going, but we don't know where we're going. We're coming, but we don't know where we come from. We do not understand our purpose. We lack understanding. We lack knowledge. We lack vision. And he says, if you do not have those things, you're not going to fulfill the purpose. That's what it's all about. Your life will actually miss the purpose of what it was created. So Ecclesiastes 3 says, there is a time and a season for every purpose. So, guys, we are living in time. There is a purpose for my days, and I have to find it. And every morning is a new opportunity for you to find out your purpose. So what you need to do every morning is you need to wake up. So the minute you wake up in the Spirit, that's exactly the time that you will step into the purposes of God. Now, if it's sealed, it means it's not known, it's covered, it's closed. But when the seal is broken, we know it. I hate secret things. I absolutely hate it when I don't know what's going on. As long as I know what's going on, I'll forgive them, I'll set them free. But when people lie all around you and you don't know, it sort of eats like a cancer on you, and it is not God. So the word is Spirit-breathed, and the Spirit will open the word. Why must you read this precious word and not understand it? How are you going to read it? By learning the spiritual language. If you don't learn English, you're not going to read an English Bible. You can't talk English. If you can't speak Afrikaans, you're not going to understand when we speak around you. But if you speak Afrikaans, I was on an airport and there were 2 Afrikaans people. So when you're overseas, you get used to people not understanding what you say. And they were talking about me and I'm sitting there listening. So when I left them till they finished and I said, ja, ek stem nie heeltemal saam met julle nie. It was quite a shock. So it's like, guys, if you can understand the Spirit language, you will understand the word. The Spirit language is Spirit. It's numbers and symbols and parables and visions, and you got to understand it. So start, Annalise, but I don't know it. Well, start somewhere. A, B, C. 1, 2, 3. 1 is unity. 2 is agreement. 3 is God. 4 is earth. 5 is a hand. It's God's ministry. 6 is the number of man. It's 1 short of 7. 7 is God's number. 10 is complete. Do you get it? This is like, just start somewhere. If you learn something every day, you're going to eventually master it. Now, he says in 2 Corinthians 3 verse 6, I would actually like to read this for you. He says, He have made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. Now, when he talks about the letter, it's the law, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. So if you, with a natural mind, read the Bible, it's like a law book. It kills you. But this is in connection with when Moses came down from the mountain, his face covered, and he couldn't even, speak to the people but cover his face because they couldn't see the glory that was coming. He didn't even see the front side of God, but it already changed him. And he didn't want them to see the glory that was fading. Now, at the end of this chapter, he said, now if you turn to the Lord, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. I'm going to read you the previous verse, verse 16. Nevertheless, when we shall turn to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Because if you read the law and judgmental, it's like there's a veil. In other words, guys, it's closed. You cannot see. Even if you read the Bible, it's veiled. He says, but when you turn to the Lord, the veil is removed. And the Lord is the Spirit. Now look at this. But we all, with open face, beholding as a glass the glory of God, are changed into the same image from glory to glory. So Christ in us is the hope of glory. But there was a glory of the old. Now there's a hope of glory. But if we read with an open face, we will be changed from glory to glory. You know what it says? It says everything that is written is going to be revealed to us and manifest in us. And we will be the manifested sons on the earth. Listen, I'm so tired of hearing, I'm going to be it. I want to be it now. It's time. It's time that we really wake up to this. There is an open face. Now, Isaiah had to prophesy to Israel just before they went to Babylon. You will see, but you will not see. You will hear, but you will not hear. And then God says in Isaiah 8 verse 7, he says, and God turned his face away from them. But here he says, we're going to see him face to face, face to face. So if you have the Spirit, you're going to start, what? You will jump on your bed like me. So he says, we do not know what we shall be. But when we see him, we shall be like him. Because the more we see it, the more it changes us from the inside out. Remember, you are sealed with the Spirit. Now, the first mention is always setting the pattern. So we need to understand that the sealed things are in God's treasury. But when they're revealed, it is ours. And it is so pathetic that Israel did not receive the law. Then the law was added. They did not receive it. And when Isaiah prophesied to them and said, your eyes are closed, the very pattern of prophecy they carried, when Jesus came, they did not receive him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. And then they were sent to Babylon for 70 years. Now, this is crazy. Daniel was taken to Babylon when he was about 16 years. So 16 plus 70, he must have been 80, 90, when more or less he was an old man. He has spent his whole life in captivity. Faithful. Oh my word. He wouldn't bow. He wouldn't fall for money. He didn't fall for food, though everything was taken away from him. He did not compromise. When they said, you shall not pray, he just kept praying. And he was thrown in the lion's den, bringing out the prophecy of Christ that was going to be in the lion's den. And a stone was rolled before the den with the king's seal on it. So, whoa, this brings us back to all the kings of the Old Testament. This is why they used seals. If the king's seal was on it, nobody could change it. And it doesn't even matter. You cannot change what is there. But if it's broken, everybody knows what's going on. Only the king could break it. And if a king's seal was broken, someone read it that shouldn't read it, and he was killed. So sealing something was a great major thing. So when Daniel was in the lion's den, it was sealed. Nobody could change it. The king, he's a king. Every night he had another woman. He could eat what he wanted to. He's the king. He can do what he wants to. The Bible says that night he didn't sleep. He didn't have woman. He didn't have nothing. And early in the morning, he ran to the place where Daniel was. He opened and rolled the stone away. Daniel, did your God save you? And Daniel came, yeah, what's wrong? I slept so nice and warm. Didn't you sleep? Come on. Early in the morning, Mary Magdalene went to the grave and the seal was broken. Who opened it? The king. So it is okay if you open the seals. But when God opens the stuff, oh my, it means he really wants us to have it. Daniel found himself a young man in this situation and faithful, never understanding what he's been through. So as an old man in the 15th year of Ahasuerus, King Artaxerxes, who was Darius, in the 15th year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus was the king that Esther married to. And he gave a command. Now, he said everybody could protect themselves. And he put this seal on it. You know the story of Esther. Esther came and pleaded for the people. And then the king gave a command, and he put his seal, and he said, Israel can protect themselves. Can you imagine what happened there? After all these years in captivity, they could revenge themselves. They slaughtered the Babylonians with the king's seal. These are all pictures of what's coming, of what is going to be. But now Daniel is in the middle of it. He says there, in the 15th year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, Daniel, he started reading the book of Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 25, he clearly says that Israel will be taken to Babylon for 70 years. I think Daniel must have taken that scroll and said, wait, I have to sit down. Is this why I'm here? And what he did is he started repenting. He repented for everybody. Because this man was just a man with a heart. He wouldn't compromise. And what happened? The next minute, the angel started appearing to him. And from Daniel 7 to Daniel 12 was visions, visions, visions. And God gave him 70 weeks of 7 vision unto Messiah. And listen, the last prophet was Malachi. And there was 400 years of silence. But all that silent history in the world, God gave it to Daniel, and he prophesied it. He opened it. He like saw it, and he wrote it down, and he wrote it down. He was caught up, and he was like, the angel said, Daniel, I've come so that you can understand. And then something terrible happens, and I got to take you there. It's in Daniel 9, because now Daniel saw all these things, and it like really scared the wits out of Daniel. He was like, oh my word. Now look at this, Daniel 12, the last chapter of Daniel. Daniel is awesome. The first chapter, 6 chapters is history. The last 6 chapters is all visions of Daniel. And he literally saw the detail of the history of the kingdoms of the world unto Rome. And in the time of Rome, that is when Jesus was born, he was crucified, he raised from the dead, and the old was removed. So this is why Jesus on the cross, he said, it's finished. But in Revelation 21, he says, it's done. It's over now. So he came as the Son of Man to finish the work there. Now, Daniel saw everything up till that point, and he's like, 70 weeks of 7 unto Messiah, and all the hell that broke loose over the people, his people. He says 70 weeks of 7 is upon your people and the city unto Messiah. And we read it in Revelation as seals, trumpets, and vials. I just want to say, those things are open. We need to understand it. And it's not that it's like now open. It's been open for 2,000 years. I'm going to explain this to you. In Daniel 12, Daniel, I'm going to read from verse 1. And at the time of the end, Michael shall stand up, the great prince that standeth for the children of the people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at the time of the people shall be delivered, and everyone shall be found written in a book. Okay, we know now the books are opened. But in Revelation 12, we read about Michael again. He says, there's a great wonder in heaven, the woman. There's another wonder in heaven, the great red dragon, who is no one else but Satan, the serpent himself, is the great red dragon. He says, but now Michael and his angels fought, and the dragon was cast out. Jesus says in John 12, the accuser of the brethren is now cast out of heaven. Then he said, I saw him fall out lightning from heaven, but he still had a place of accusation. He still always poked his finger in. That's why he had a tree in the garden. He could still enter, but his place was not there. Now, Jesus dealt with him, and he's not found in heaven anymore. The accuser of the brethren is cast down. But he says, woe unto the earth, because this thing is now cast unto the earth. And he is walking like a roaring lion, Peter says, because Revelation tells us he has a short time. Guys, if you don't understand times, you're going to put this to the end, and it's not to the end. Because Revelation 20 says, death and hell is already in the lake of fire. Those that didn't receive. The judgment has already taken place. Now he says, at the end, Michael will fight. Now he talks here and he says it's a time of trouble. Other translation says it's the time of tribulation that has never been and never will be. Now I know that there has been terrible wars, terrible famines, terrible floods. Come on. When Jesus said the rainbow, he said, never again will I flood the earth with water. We have had floods. We've had lots of floods. There are lots of floods everywhere, and there's a lot of people dying in floods. But never has the whole earth been destroyed with water. So you must understand the times and the seasons and the spirit language here. He says there will never be such a time again. So I don't care how bad the wars are, it's not the end of the world, because that was the worst. That was the time of tribulation. He says, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Now this happened when Jesus died and rose, the graves opened, and they only ascended when he ascended, after he ascended. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. They that be wise. So there were fools too. I think Jesus told us about the 5 wise virgins and the 5 foolish. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars, and they will be forever and ever. Now he comes. Now you must remember, this is Daniel 12. Daniel have just seen the whole line of history following from Babylon right unto Christ. From when Ahasuerus gave them the command, 457 BC, unto Christ, who was baptized 27. And if you work it out, you will see it's the exact times, because he says it is now in 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That gives you 69 weeks. That's 483 years. So if you take it from 457 up till there, and you add the going over the millennium, you have to add 1, you get to the year 27 AD. And the year 27 AD is described in Luke 3. The Bible is just awesome. He says in Luke 3, the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, who was the 3rd king of the 10 horns. He says Tiberius was Caesar, Philip was tetrarch, Herod was a king, Lysanias and Pilate was a tetrarch. And then was Annas and Caiaphas. And those were the 7 heads or rulers or mountains on which the whore was sitting. So you cannot take these things and apply it to nowadays history. It was all in the time of Rome. But now he says, now Daniel was in a state. He was in a state. I think it started when he realized, oh my gosh, 70 years. When he finally opened the book of Jeremiah. Now remember, it was not so easy as it is now. I think he was just like, Huh? Now he says, the angel says to him, Daniel, don't worry. You shut up the words and seal the book. It's a book that's sealed. What is this book sealed? Unto Messiah. The whole Israel carried the pattern of the book. The system was the pattern of the Christ. And now there's no more voices. The law was a mess. The prophets were dead. And he says, seal up the book. And on the right hand of him that sit on the throne, Revelation 5, is a book sealed with 7 seals. Jesus Christ, the river. He's the tree of life. He is the book. The book is written within and on the back. The front side is not written. And he says, seal the book. Even to the time of the end. When is the end? He's talking here about the end of the time of this vision. So when it's going to be opened. Now he comes and he says in Hebrews 9 verse 26 that Jesus Christ came at the end of the world to bring the final sacrifice once and for all. But what did Israel do? They went on. So they did not receive the sacrifice. They turned the sacrifice in, they worshiped the system instead of the God. They turned the truth of God into a lie. They opened the doors to everything and they became an abomination to God. So they did not receive that sacrifice. So they were the ones that cried for his blood to come on them and their children. So they were the wicked generation. You've just got to go read what Jesus calls them. He says the abominable generation, the wicked generation, the unfaithful generation, the unbelieving generation. That was that generation. A generation is 40 years. But he says, seal the book until the time of the end. For many shall run to and fro, and the knowledge shall increase. As time goes, revelation grows. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood another 2. The one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other one on the other side of the river. And one said to the other man clothed, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? What wonders? These things that are now sealed. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters and the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto the heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever. And it shall be for a time and a times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now please, Jesus Christ, Daniel 9, was sacrificed in the final week of Daniel's prophecy. And it was 3.5 years before the time he was baptized. 3.5 years after it, Stephen was stoned and the persecution started. And also the persecution of Rome started. Because from Christ up to Stephen, the Jews persecuted the Christians. But it got out of hand with Paul. And then Rome grabbed in and they destroyed Israel. Rome, it's got nothing to do with us. Revelation 7 and 8 describes the Roman armies. It's got nothing to do with us. And it is like the story of Haman and Mordecai. Haman made the gallows for Mordecai, but he hung on the same gallows that he made for someone else. And this is Rome, Israel allied with Rome to take out the Messiah. Now Rome took out Israel. This is the same sort of story. And at the end, the final taking away of the daily sacrifice also has a last week. Also 3.5 years, 3.5 years. And you pick this up from Daniel 8, 9, and 12. All these numbers. Because it started, the revolt started in 66 AD. 70 AD, Jerusalem was burned down. 73 AD, Masada was sacked and everybody died. It was the end of the final daily sacrifice. It was the final end of it. So this is what he's talking about. And I heard and I understood not. Then said I, oh my Lord, what shall the end of these things be? Can you see Daniel? I think he was in a state. And he said to me, go your way, Daniel. For the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. And I love the last verse. He says to Daniel, Daniel, he says, go your way till the end be. But you will rest and you will stand in your allotted place at the end. So Daniel just stepped into the cloud of witnesses. He will stand in his allotted place at the end. Now, this seals is opened in Revelation 5. Daniel sealed it. He said all these things he saw, he sealed it. So from Babylon up to, now Babylon was 457 years from the going forth of the command. When Daniel saw this, it was 400 years of silence. And then it was 30 years until Jesus. And then they didn't receive Jesus. They crucified him. Then it was that generation. So it is right at the end. It's 70 AD. In Revelation 5, he says, and I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. He says it 2 times in the book of Hebrews, Hebrews 1, Hebrews 12, Hebrews 10. After he was raised, he ascended and he was sitting at the right hand. So what is this book? It's the ascended Christ at the right hand. So at the right hand was a book that is sealed. So he was already at the right hand, but the works that he's got to do is sealed. It's still covered. It's not revealed. So it's not ours. This is where we are in Revelation 5. You must understand, Genesis and Revelation are visions. You read it like this. So now it's sealed. And this book has to open. So when Jesus ascended, he was the open book. He says, and I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, and it's sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof? No man in heaven, on earth, or neither under the earth was able to open the book. This is why God prepared a body, and he came and lived in the body, in the form of a natural creatures, in the form of man, the ox, the eagle, the lion, and the man. Jesus was a man of man. He was Son of Man, Son of God. He was the servant that became obedient unto death. He was the lion that faced the world, and he would not bow. The head of Babylon was the lion. When Daniel revealed to Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold, he said, no, I'm not just going to be the head of gold. I'm going to make a whole statue of gold and everybody's going to bow before me. And 3 men didn't bow. And a 4th man came walking. This is why Jesus is the 4th man. He's got 4 characters. He's the lion, he's the king, but he's also the ox and he's a man. He became the 4th man. I love this. And no man in heaven or earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look into it. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open the book, to read it, neither to open the book. And one of the elders said to me, stop crying. The lion he said, stop weeping, weep not. Shut up. Behold the lion. I just want to say to everybody, stop crying about your situations. Behold what God hath done for you. Oh my God, if he has done this, what's your situation? The root of David hath prevailed to open the book. The lion out of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed. What has he done? He lived the life. He passed all the tests, all the temptations. He prevailed to open the book and loose the seals. when was this seals sealed? In Daniel's time, it was sealed. All the history until Messiah and everything that's going to happen until 70 AD. So from Babylon to 70 AD was the removal of the old. Christ's coming was a visitation to Israel to give them yet another chance. But what did they do? They killed him and said, let his blood come on us. And they brought the day of vengeance. He brought the year of favor. They brought the day of vengeance, written in Isaiah. So when the seals were open, the minute Jesus Christ was crucified, the book was opened. The seals were broken. And the minute the book was open, you could see the history and really understand. Just like Daniel, if it was closed, he couldn't get it. But the day he took Jeremiah and he realized, oh, I'm in this because of what they did. Okay. Now, Jeremiah and Isaiah's prophecies was open to Daniel. Daniel sealed the books and it was opened in Christ. The seals were broken. So it is now open. And you can understand what happened from Babylon to 70 AD. And he says, 70 weeks of 7 will be upon your people, upon the city, unto the temple. So from Babylon to Christ, it's the 7 seals upon the people, not South Africans, Daniel's people. Then it is the 7 trumpets on the city. The city was divided in 3. Revelation 16 tells us, and the history tells us it was divided on John of Cascala, Eliezer, which was a priest, and Simon. These were 2 zealot fighters and a priest that all fought for the authority in the city. They all wanted to be rulers. The city was divided. And you will see when the trumpet started blowing, it's a third of this, a third of that, a third. The history writer Josephus said, these people were fighting amongst each other. And when the Romans came closer, they fought the Romans. They were like mad ants. And if the Romans were out, they were fighting on the inside. They killed more people on the inside. This is the prophecy that Deuteronomy has sealed. Deuteronomy 32. He says, there will be wars on your outside and sword on the inside. Your end is a day of vengeance, darkness, fire. You will be like Sodom. You will be like Gomorrah. And I'm sealing this. Here it's all opened. Oh, my word. So in one day, the vials were poured out on the temple in one day. And that is 70 AD when the temple burned down. They say that it was like it could not be the work of man's hand what happened there. The soldiers of the Roman soldiers set the temple to light, but they described it. They said Titus threw up his hands in the air and they said, this must be a work of God. It looked like Sodom. It looked like the sulfur coming from the air. It was the most terrible time. So this was all that Daniel sealed. But if they did not crucify the Lord of glory, if they received Christ, because when he came out of the desert in temptation, he looked for the scroll where Isaiah was written. The scroll was handed him and he looked for the place and he says, this is the year of the favor of the Lord. And Isaiah wrote, and the day of vengeance. Jesus never mentioned the day of vengeance. If they only received the Christ. He came preaching the kingdom, they didn't receive it. Now, he says in Matthew 11 that the kingdom was taken by force. The kingdom suffered violence, and the violent took it by force. Now he had to appear on another mountain, the Mount of Transfiguration, where Moses and Elijah, whose job was actually finished, appeared again, and they revealed him the exit. And from that point, he preached death and resurrection. So when Jesus died, these seals were opened, but it also brought the day of vengeance. Because the seals was broken if they just kept it like that. But no, they opened it. They wanted him killed. Because he was killed, you could see from Babylon to 70 AD. Guys, I'm just sitting here thinking, how in the world can you even take this period and put it in our time? Then you don't understand the kingdom at all. So I think we better go to the kingdom. So let's run through it again. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel had prophecies. That was prophecies, but it was closed because the people's eyes were closed. They couldn't see. God's face was turned away. They went to Babylon. Then Daniel's eyes was open and, oh my word, is this why we're here? And then he saw way into the future. And God says, seal it. So all of that time it was sealed. And when Christ was crucified, the seals were broken. And now, because the seals were broken, those things became a reality. When you read Revelation, he says, write. So the book of Revelation was the last prophetical book, the last book in the Bible. It's not the last written book, but it was the last book on time that's revealed. So he comes in Revelation 21 and 22. And he's like bringing us back to the garden. He says the tree's open. The river is open. The river comes out of the Lamb and out of the throne. In other words, the throne is open. In other words, heaven and earth is in agreement. There's a scripture in 1 John 5 where he says, there are three that testify in heaven, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. There are three that testify in the earth, the blood, the Spirit, and the water. And these are all in agreement. Remember, in the beginning, it was all separated. Now, heaven and earth is in agreement. Now, this is what Revelation 21 and 22 is about, the kingdom on earth. Now, I'm telling you, for most Christians, the kingdom on earth is, it's still sealed. It's not revealed. So they're just born again, and they can see the kingdom, but they can never enter the kingdom. For some people, it's revealed to a point where you can go in, but there's a point where you have to die to your will to enter the kingdom. So when you're born again of water and the Spirit is fire. What is the fire? It takes away everything that is not God. He says, your building will be tested with fire, and only the precious stones and the pearls and the gold and the silver and the precious stones will be left. But the wood and the hay and the stubble, they'll go. But you'll be saved. Your foundation is set, Jesus Christ. But you're not going to have it here. So there is a point where the kingdom have to be revealed to us, that you can actually live in this darkness, in this overcoming life. You must remember, he said in the beginning of Revelation 1, write to the 7 churches. You must write, you must write, you must write. And he said to me, seal not the sayings of this prophecy, of this book, for the time is at hand. So he is writing to the 7 churches, and he says, don't seal the prophecy of this book. And he's busy here in Revelation 21 and 22, where he comes to the kingdom, and he says, don't seal it. Don't seal the kingdom. The kingdom is here. But this is a little bit in contrast with if you go back to Revelation 10. Because Revelation 10 is like a magnificent chapter. If you understand the times that is set out in Revelation 10, it makes sense. He says, and I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. Whoa. He says his truth is set in the cloud. His bow is set in the clouds. The word is settled in the clouds. He's not talking about earthly clouds. He's talking about the heavenly clouds, which is the cloud of witnesses. And a rainbow was upon his head. A rainbow. It will never happen again. And this face was as the face of the sun. This is the face that shines on us. It's so bright that there is no shadow cast anymore. And the face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. The pillars of fire were those clouds of pillars that led them through the desert. The face like the sun. Paul saw that face because he was caught up into the third heaven. And he had, oh my word, please. Christ was the closed book that was on the right hand of the Father. Who will open the books? Then he himself, the Lion out of the tribe of Judah, the manifested Christ on the earth, came and he opened the book. Now we read about he is the open book. So here he comes and he tells you what the open book is doing and has done. And he had in his right hand a little book opened. So there is a little book that is opened in his right hand. This is something that he brought in. And he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. Now this I love. Because the sea talks about all the nations and the land talks about the group of people that God chose, like Israel was his people. That was the land and the sea. Because it was set from Genesis. On the third day, he separated the land and the sea. And when he started talking about the generations, he called islands groups of people. So there's very nations and nations. But in Christ, there's no more Jew or Gentile. He puts his feet on the land and the sea. And he's got a little book. And he cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. And when he had cried, the seven thunders uttered their voices. And remember, with the thunders, there's always lightnings, revelations. But look at this. There is no lightnings here. So we still need the revelations that's coming with us. And when the seven thunders uttered their voice, and I was about to write. Now, please, John was commanded to write. In Revelation 1, I was on the Isle of Patmos for the word of the Lord and the testimony of Christ, which started in Abraham. And he says, write to the seven churches. And boom, boom, boom. He writes to the seven churches and he tells them, he that overcomes. Now, those are the most important letters that we must learn because we have to read it. It speaks about every time you overcome what your reward is. And it talks about the seven churches that went through this tribulation, but it also projects onto the seven church ages coming. So when Jesus Christ opened the seals, he could write to the seven churches. But now, when Jesus Christ was opened, the seven churches' letters was written, and the flames were now on the candlesticks. But this is strange what's happening here. And when the seven thunders uttered their voices, and I was about to write, I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up those things which are the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. Seal up. Oh my word. When I read this, it was like, I felt like Daniel. Oh my God, what is going on here? Let's go. The prophecies were opened when Daniel understood. Daniel saw history. He sealed it up. Christ opened it. And he says in Revelation, when it comes to the kingdom, seal not that the kingdom is open. But now he says here, the Christ revealed, the one with the rainbow in the clouds, the pillar, the face, everything, it's him. And he's standing on the land and the sea with a little book, and he says, seal it, don't write it. Now this is why I say that as time goes, revelation grows. Because Revelation 22 and 21 tells us out of the throne comes this river. We're back in the garden. The tree of life is on both sides of the river. The river comes through the tree. There's a street in the middle. Everything is open. But here he says, seal up those things which the seven thunders and uttered them not. Can you please note it's seven thunders? So there's 7 churches, and there's things that's revealed to the 7 churches. Now, if you go to the 7 church letters, he says, this is what I like. This is what I... No, sorry. He says first, this is who I am. And he reveals himself as the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days in one, God of God. And he says, this is what I don't like. This is what I like. This is how you stop it. And stop it unless I'm going to remove your candle. And this is how you overcome. Now here, 7 thunders. And you must read these things here. And this is, he tells them, seal it. He tells them what to do, but now seal it. And through the 7 church ages, through church history, you've seen so many people miss it and so many people make it. But it is not totally everything revealed. It's like, if you look back, you realize it's like climbing a mountain. We don't know where we're going, but look how far we've gone. You know, it's like, go climb a high mountain and just experience this for yourself. Now he says, and the angel, listen to this. It's a book. It's a book. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Jesus Christ was the book sealed. Now it's the book open, but you must, the book is open, but you must taste it. Now he says, the angels which saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in, and the earth and the things that are, and the sea and the things that are in, and that time should be no longer. What? The thunders is the things that's going to happen to the churches till time should be no more. Guys, I can't read all the scriptures, but I'm telling you, as I read, you catch the spirit of the word. So this is pointing to the time that 1 Corinthians 15 tells us. He said, when the final enemy is conquered and the kingdom is given over to this Father, and so we'll be ever in perfection. He says, wait, I'll show you a mystery. This is the last mystery that was revealed to Paul. It's mysteries that the disciples never understood the kingdom. The day Jesus ascended, the day he ascended, he was now for 40 days speaking to them about the revelation of the kingdom. He says in Revelation 22, do not seal the kingdom. He spoke to them about the kingdom. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. Paul got it. And Paul got all the mysteries that's revealed. Go look at all the mysteries in the New Testament. Our brother Paul revealed it. The final mystery is when he says, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all die. Some shall die, but we shall not all die. But there will be a trumpet blowing, the dead will rise, and the living will be changed. We shall all be changed. And he calls this, death is swallowed up by life. You read this in 2 Corinthians 5. He says, I long to be clothed, not to be unclothed, but to be clothed upon, death to swallow up life. And Paul writes and he says, I wish I could see this, but I know. My intention is to know him, that I can even have that while I'm in my body. But I know because of time. But as time goes, revelation grows. There is only one mystery that should come in function and fulfillment, and that is death to be swallowed up by life. What is that else but the manifestation of the sons of God? Because he says we are sealed with the Holy Spirit until the time of the redemption of the purchased possession. And Romans 8 answers this question. And he says, until the time of the redemption of the body. So our spirits are sealed. And this thunders is this working that works within us in the person and within us in the ages. It's the thunders, it's hard things that will bring the opening of the final revelation when death is swallowed up. is victory. That is the end, when the kingdom will be given over to the Father. Guys, the kingdom is open. We have to start ruling and reigning as kings and priests right here on earth. Do you believe in kingdom now? Where do you want the kingdom? Heaven has come down to earth, but it's the kingdom of heaven. But heaven has come down to earth. It's the kingdom of God. God now indwells a man. God is now dwelling. His tabernacle is with men. That is why we have the Bible, because it's the history. When God said to Moses, build me a tabernacle that I can dwell with man, now he's dwelling within man. Christ in us is the hope of glory. And listen, he says there'll be 7 thunders. Don't write it. And then he turns around and says, but in the days of the voice of the 7th angel. This is not the same angel as the final angel in 1 Corinthians 15 and 1 Thessalonians 4:13. He says, but in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished. So the mysteries are finished. The mysteries are revealed. Everything is revealed. By the time the book of Revelation was written, Paul died and Paul saw all the mysteries. Everything was open. If things are open, they belong to us. But guys, we need to get hold of the mystery of the kingdom of God. But now what works in us and what works in the church ages is a tough time. And I believe that when time is no more, we will understand everything, but we've got a little glimpse of it. Ezekiel saw it. He saw the river opening up, ankle deep, knee deep, thigh deep, shoulder deep. What else is that but the 4 rivers flowing in the garden? The Pison, the Gihon, Euphrates, and the Tigris, which means increasing, freshly flowing, strong flowing, rapid flowing, and the last one is fruitful. It correlates with what Mark says. He says, the kingdom is like a seed, a blade, then an ear, and then the full corn, the harvest. It's times of refreshing until the restitution, and it starts with the reformation of Jesus Christ, which takes us to rest. So there's going to be a time where time is no more. We are in time. Please wake up to the day that we live in. We live in the bestest time ever, and Revelation is all over. The river is so deep you can swim in it. Don't sit on the side. It's time to see the earth filled, not just with the knowledge of the glory, but with the glory. You are the carrier of the knowledge of glory inside of you. And he says, the just shall live by faith. It's not our doing. It's our receiving what Christ has given us. God bless you.